What are the main issues you deal with concerning panhandlers?
Normally, people call in the areas where panhandlers are, just because they're either in the roadway or possibly blocking sidewalks. And then a lot of people kind of have a fear of people that are panhandling because they are not sure who they are, why they're there. So a lot of times we come across that, people are calling us because they're afraid to even walk down the street, or they say that panhandlers are blocking blocking the sidewalk, so we have to go talk to them about that. It's not illegal to panhandle or fly a sign, as they say, to panhandle, but there's places where people can't panhandle in the street and other places within the city. So then a lot of times we're finding when we make contact with some of the panhandlers, they may be intoxicated or just doing or trespassing on private property, things like that. So that's usually what we come across.
Okay. So you mentioned like people feeling that they're scared and things. Have you seen a lot of like violence with panhandlers actually causing violence, or is it more people feeling scared towards seeing them?
Yeah, a lot of times we find if there's a group of panhandlers, which oftentimes there are, they kind of work in groups, we'll find that they get in fights with each other, not necessarily with citizens that are walking down the street, but a lot of times the perception of people or the fear of the crime, or that this person may approach me, may be aggressively coming after me to take money from me. They just don't know. And I mean, we've had people complain they actually go around. If they're on one south side of the street, they'll go to the north side of the street to get around them to go to where they want to go. So
what are some of the pros and cons to giving handouts?
Well, I think the pros, people feel nice about giving somebody they believe is in need of money. So I think it makes people feel good, especially around the holidays. But the cons are usually the money's not used for what most people intend to give money for food and things like that. We find a lot of people that panhandle take that money and either purchase drugs or alcohol. A lot of the panhandlers work in groups, so they have 4 or 5 people taking rotated shifts on an area to get money to get a hotel, and then from there they drink and invite more people over. A lot of times there are drugs. We have a ton of services in Provo that you don't need to panhandle, or people don't have to give money to the panhandlers to help them get food. So that's kind of what we're seeing. I think just the big con for people is it just makes them feel better. Not that it supports anything else but that.
What would you suggest? Say someone's just walking down the street and they encounter a panhandler. What do you think would be the best method to deal with them?
Yeah, and I don't just be courteous, say hi to them. They're still people, and we still respect them. They're asking for money, and just tell them no. We have a food and care coalition here that supplies food and care, showers, bedding, anything that they need to basically survive. So you should take your money to the food bank or donate it to United Way. They can disperse the money. We found that if you give $1 to the food bank, your dollar will go 3 times as much, so it'll be the value of $3, because how they purchase food and all that is the value is a lot higher for your dollar. So we suggest for people to donate to the food bank instead of donating to somebody that's panhandling, and that way the food bank controls actually the food. People can get fed who want money for food.
What what does the police force typically do when encountering panhandlers? Like you've mentioned earlier about how you get calls sometimes about that. What would you do in a situation where someone's possibly breaking an ordinance, panhandling?
So we don't have any panhandling ordinance because, again, it's not against the law to panhandle. But if we do get a complaint from a citizen, we will go and investigate. Normally our first reaction would be to educate that person, because there is a code in the city, a code transaction on a road from a roadway, which is illegal for the drivers to give money, goods from a vehicle that's on the street, or for somebody to receive those goods. So the car has to be pulled over in a parking spot, illegally parked, then they can hand an item to somebody that's panhandling. So, you know, our thing is educate first, because maybe it's somebody that's new to the city that's panhandling. We'll just tell them, do you know about the ordinance here that you can't get in the roadway and receive food unless the car's legally parked? And so first our thing is to educate, especially if we're not seeing them do that and it's not against the law to panhandle. We want to protect their rights as citizens here in Provo, and just educate first is usually what we deal with. But a lot of times we find, again, somebody may be intoxicated or some other crime that's going on that we may enforce. But most of the time it's just education. Ask them to not basically receive goods illegally, and explain all that. So that's usually how we deal with the panhandlers.
Okay.
And then, yeah, and most of the time people are from out of town, they don't understand that they can't do that way.
Do you think panhandling will ever really go away? Like, do you think in Provo at least we can have enough services that panhandling will eventually not really be something you see, or do you think it'll always be there?
Well, this is my personal opinion. I think it'll always be there. We have enough services to sustain somebody's life, to get them housing in Provo, to help them get food, clothing, shelter, all the things that they need is there. Those that choose to, because people are choosing to panhandle, and so we're not going to be able to change that. There are some people that are destitute and need money to help them, but we have enough services here in Provo that if they really want help and they really want to help themselves get a job and do all those things, then we can do that. And there's a difference between homeless and panhandling, I believe. Homelessness, if people are homeless, they're either choosing to be homeless, or they're in a situation where they're now homeless, either jobs, fired, divorce, whatever, mental illness, and so they're on the streets being homeless. There's a ton of people that are homeless that don't panhandle. So those are two different components. So I think panhandling, a lot of people use it as a job. And we've talked to people that are panhandlers, and they work for 4 hours, get enough money to go to a hotel, get the things that they need, and then they're back out again the next day. So there's two different things between homeless and panhandling, and I think people confuse those two. They see somebody panhandling, they think he's homeless, they're destitute, or she's homeless and destitute, and it's like, not necessarily. I've seen so many people walk from their very nice cars to go panhandle in the city, and they're just trying to get money. You know, that's kind of their job. They have a 4-hour-a-day job, which I would love, but they work for 4 or 5 hours and then get enough money for that day, make a couple $100 and then go home and then come back. So
For one of them, why don't we have you talk
services.
About the services,
sure.
Some of the things.
Some of the services in Provo that our officers know about and use are, the United Way. they have an app that you can put on your phone, a 211 app, where it's attach your phone through the GPS, and an officer can just pull up when he's in Utah County. Let's say somebody needs an emergency dentist or something like that, and they're indigent, so they can look that up and say, hey, just go to this area and you can get help there. Or if you need help with housing, or if you need help with food, you can go to these places. Again, we do have the food and care, so in Provo, so we do, when we come across people that are either homeless or panhandling, we ask them if they know where food and care is, how to get there. Sometimes we even drive them, especially if they're out of town. We'll drive them to food and care and say, hey, these guys can help you. You know, there's all kinds of services there at food and care to help somebody. So, you know, we use those in Provo. The food bank is also in Provo for people that need food or families that need food, so we'll send them there too. And so there's a lot of services that our officers, usually those that are panhandling or homeless that may not be familiar with we educate them and say, hey, go here, and get some help. So.
I just have another question, Jed.
Okay.
Do you see panhandling affecting businesses at all around Provo?
Mm-hmm.
Like, someone's panhandling, they should remove business from a company or a store somewhere?
Sure.
They're panhandling near it?
We had a kind of a big influx a couple of years ago right downtown on Center and University, and we had a lot of the businesses complaining, and they actually saw a decrease in their business, walk-in business, especially during lunches and things like that. And we asked them to keep kind of track of that to see if it did affect their business, and there was from several businesses, because people just didn't want to deal with or didn't feel safe walking in that area. There are so many panhandlers in that area, and so yeah, it does affect business, I think, especially from the people that are walking in and have to walk past the panhandlers because they just don't want to be approached by them.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah. No, I think that the business one was a good one that I was going to ask. Let's see. Maybe. So we went up and got some footage at like the Pioneer Park area in Salt Lake and stuff.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously there's an issue there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like what do you think kind of causes that influx of, like, I mean, just a big gathering of panhandlers or homeless people in a certain area, and how do you think it's best addressed?
Sure. Well, and we find that around food and care, around places that have services for homelessness or people that panhandle, that's where a lot of the homeless congregate, because basically that's where they're getting food, that's where they're getting shelter, so they stay close because they don't. A lot of people that are homeless may not have cars, so and again, that's their job, they need to get food, so they walk to food and care, and so that's what they do, for their breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So they stay close around those areas. So wherever those services are, you'll see an influx of people in the area. So when people that are homeless, if there's a lot of them and space is not available for somebody to go, it pushes them out into the neighborhoods and other areas. So that's why there's a higher influx by those facilities, I think. Is the answer to shut those down? If you shut those down, it's like giving a cat, some milk. They'll keep coming back to where the milk is, but if the milk's gone, then people would move on. But then we have to care about people and help people also. But maybe there's a better way, and I think that's what we need to kind of concentrate on, is just giving somebody a free handout the right thing to do. Maybe not. Maybe we need to find a different way to help people that are homeless get into places in a different way, because I think what we're doing, we're feeding them. People just stay where they are because they're getting food, but people have to eat. So I think it's that balance of providing free things and people living close to where they get food. So it's just natural. It's a natural thing for us to do that as humans, to stay close, so we don't have to move too far or do too many things. So I don't know if free lodging, free food is the answer. I don't know. Somebody smarter than me is probably going to have to figure that out.
So with the Food and Care Coalition, when we were over there, they placed a large emphasis on getting people back into jobs and back into life.
Correct.
Have you seen any of that? Talking with Brent Crane, since he works with them, he's telling us a lot about that. But just in your own work around, have you seen that happen to quite a few people where they're able to actually get out of this homelessness circle?
Yeah. And one thing we do in the community policing division here is we meet once a week at 9 o'clock in the morning with people from Food and Care, with people from Provo Housing, mental health, victim advocates, Department of Family Services, Adult Protective Services, Fire Department. We have a large group that meets to help solve problems, and some of those problems are people that are homeless. So we address those, a lot of the people, to get those resources and help them continue on down the line. A lot of times there are people that are homeless, may have criminal histories in the past that may prohibit them from getting an apartment or something in the general area in Provo. But with some of the coalitions that are out there helping to get people into housing, and one of my officers is actually on a board that goes in and talks about those people, and we find that that kind of stops people from getting normal housing. But then also there's some rules to live by, and a lot of people that are homeless don't like to live by some of the standards. So we find a lot of people put good effort and then they fail, and they keep going back and forth, and we keep encouraging them to go. So we eventually do see a lot of people that do find homes through apartments, through help with, especially with Food and Care, helps them get in those apartments. And that's kind of our goal is, if we get our jobs and work at our jobs, get a home to stay in, and people sustain their lives. And again, I think if we start handing them free stuff, people just say, well, I got free stuff, I don't have to work, I don't have to do anything, I can live on the streets. And it's hard because some people are fine living on the streets, and so I don't know if we're trying to push them into the ideas that we have or what, but we do see success with people moving on, getting a place, getting a job, being contributing to society, and we encourage that. So.
Awesome. So, do you have any final remarks that you'd like to say, or?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything.
I think we covered it all. So.
Yeah, and then if you want to put a blurb in there, the code, basically the unlawful transfer from the vehicle. That's one of our codes that, again, if somebody can't receive goods, money or goods from a vehicle that's in the middle of the street, has to pull to either a designated parking spot, or you can't stop anybody or approach somebody leaving a parking lot area like private property to the roadway. Can't transfer anything there, because what it does, it basically stops the flow of traffic. And we found that people were almost hit with cars because somebody's running to another car through streets and they're getting hit. Or we even had a bunch of kids throw a whole bunch of change at one of our guys that was panhandling and just throw it as hard as they could and pelt them. Or they just throw food out on the ground, and then they're not, some of the panhandlers aren't paying attention. They'll bend over and pick up food, but there's cars coming, and so it's just a dangerous thing. So people can just pull over if they want to hand them food or money. You need to pull over in a safe spot. So we can cite the people that are doing this as far as the people that are receiving the goods and the people that are giving the goods from the vehicle, because both of them are breaking the ordinance. So we can go after either the cars, and we've done that before. We'll stop the cars and then stop the people that are receiving the money. Usually educate first, and if we find them doing that again, then we usually give citations out. But yeah, so it's kind of a different ordinance. Again, it's not a panhandling ordinance. It's just a, so anybody doing that on the street shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Pull over, please. So
It's more about the safety there.
yeah, I mean, because again, it's not against the law to fly a sign or panhandle. So it's people's constitutional right to do that, and we need to respect that. So, but, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Anything else, guys?